barbell Pendlay row. Now, a great exercise to develop power and strength in your back. Before we get into the actual exercise, let's go over the setup. So setup, the bar is always going to be on the floor. And more importantly, you want to make sure you have the correct weight plates on. So these weights, even though this is a 5 kilo plate here, it is still the correct and standardized diameter. So if I have a 5 kilo or a 10 kilo plate on, it's still going to be the same diameter each time, which then means I can recreate the same scenario every time when performing this exercise, regardless of weight. One thing to keep in mind is some commercial gyms, or even maybe your home gym, the weights, their diameter will scale based on how heavy it is. So if it's a 20 kilo plate, it'll be the standard diameter, but if it's a 5 or a 10 kilo plate, it'll be usually half the diameter. So it scales as the weight gets lighter. That's something to keep in mind, especially if you're not able to lift with with a 20 kilo plate on either side. If that's the case, and it's lower to the ground than what you'd like, add some sort of elevation on underneath so that it's raised up a bit. That could be using another plate to stack it on top of. It could be a yoga block. It could be using the support arms of the rack, whatever it is you need to do so that the height of the bar is at about mid-shin or just below mid-shin. That's the ideal sweet spot for the exercise when setting up. Now, into the actual exercise. So, the key part about nailing this movement is your setup position. So the setup position, you want to be down in an RDL position. Your hips are going to be back. The weight is on your heels. You should feel a good lengthening sensation through your hamstrings. Back is nice and flat. Grip is set. Grip can be shoulder width or just outside. Firm grip, create tension, pull. Breathe in, brace, pull. Pull. Now, let's go over that. So, you would have noticed that the key part of this movement is the initial pull. You want to be pulling as hard and as strong as you can, focusing on speed, focusing on power, okay? Whereas the eccentric, the part where the bar is lowering back towards the ground, doesn't really matter too much. You don't want to slam it into the floor. However, it doesn't need to be completely controlled like you would, say, a normal bent over barbell row. The reason for this is because it's a different type of movement. The key thing though to work on with this exercise is one, making sure you're not hinging and using momentum from your back. You really want to lower back. You really want to make sure you're isolating this movement to your upper back, your lats specifically, like that, as opposed to like that, right? We don't want to use momentum of our body to pull the weight in. Secondly, really maintaining that hip position. If I can't feel my hamstrings, if my weight's not on my heels, then I know I'm not in the correct position to perform this exercise. A common mistake is people will often be too upright to perform the exercise, or they're too far forward onto their toes, making them unbalanced and potentially leading them to fall forward as they perform the exercise. So those are some things to keep in mind when performing the Pendlay row.